Welcome to our channel. Today, we bring you a story filled with drama, shocking twists, and powerful inspiration. Imagine this. A successful black woman CEO walks into a luxury restaurant, simply asking for a table. Yet instead of respect, she is met with cold rejection and prejudice from the staff. What they didn't know was that just minutes later, this very woman would turn the tables, literally, by becoming the new owner of the restaurant. From humiliation to ultimate triumph, this story will take you on an emotional ride full of surprises. If you're curious how a simple act of disrespect turned into a multi-million-dollar deal, make sure to watch until the end. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss more inspiring, dramatic, and unforgettable stories we share with you. First, that afternoon, the city skyline glowed under a golden sunset. Skyscrapers cast long shadows over the polished stone streets, where people hurried along with the rhythm of modern life. On a street lined with the most luxurious restaurants, one French fine dining spot stood out, a place where the wealthy gathered to flaunt their fortune, where deals were made over champagne, and where waiters judged guests with a single glance. The glass doors slid open, and in walked a tall woman whose presence turned heads. Her fitted black dress and elegant heels gave her an air of power and sophistication. Yet, the hostess's face betrayed a flicker of discomfort, as if this woman somehow didn't belong in such a glamorous setting. Her name was Angela Thomas, the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar tech empire. But of course the staff had no idea. Or worse, maybe they simply couldn't imagine a black woman holding that kind of power. In their eyes, designer bags and quiet confidence could never erase prejudice. Angela approached the front desk with a polite smile. "Good evening. I'd like a table for one, preferably by the window." The blonde hostess glanced her up and down, forcing a thin, fake smile. "I'm sorry, but we're fully booked tonight." Angela raised an eyebrow. Years in the corporate world had sharpened her instincts. She could spot a lie instantly. And sure enough, right behind her, a well-dressed couple had just walked in, only to be promptly led to an empty table. "Oh, fully booked?" Angela chuckled, her voice calm but laced with irony. "That's funny. I could swear I just saw an open table right there." The hostess hesitated, then quickly recovered with arrogant composure. "That table is already reserved, ma'am." Angela sighed. "Here we go again. Same old game. They think I don't belong here, just because of my skin color and their shallow assumptions." But instead of getting angry, Angela smiled. She was used to this kind of treatment. Normally she would have ignored it. But tonight, maybe because the sunset was too beautiful, or maybe because she had just closed a billion-dollar deal, she felt like playing along, just to see how far their arrogance would go. She leaned in slightly, her eyes locking with the hostess's. "Thank you for your hospitality. I think I'll stick around a little longer. Who knows? Maybe a table will magically open up." Her tone carried just the right amount of sarcasm, freezing the air for a moment. The hostess bit her lip, unable to come up with a clever reply, settling for a stiff smile instead. Angela turned, heading toward the bar, leaving the staff caught between contempt and unease. And in the back of her mind, a thought lingered. If they won't give me a seat, maybe I'll just buy the whole damn place with a single phone call. Angela settled into a stool at the bar and ordered a glass of red wine. The bartender, a young man with a friendly face, looked at her without the slightest prejudice, so different from the icy attitude of the hostess. He smiled warmly and said, "What kind of wine would you like? I have a feeling today's a big day for you." Angela raised an eyebrow, a half smile tugging at her lips. "You guessed right. I just closed a multi-billion-dollar deal. But apparently that doesn't mean much here. Not if my skin color doesn't match the chairs by the window." The bartender froze for a moment, then gave a nervous chuckle and quietly poured her drink. Angela took the glass, her eyes drifting toward the main dining area. Elegant guests chatted over gourmet dishes, laughter echoing, crystal glasses clinking. No one noticed her, or rather, they didn't think she was worth noticing. Meanwhile, the hostess whispered something to the restaurant manager, a middle-aged man with graying hair and a perfectly tailored suit. Angela didn't need to hear it to know. The same old script. This kind of guest could be trouble. Probably can't afford it. Not the type we want for the image of the place. The manager approached wearing a polite smile that failed to mask the disdain in his eyes. "Ma'am, I'm afraid we really are at capacity tonight. If you'd like, we can recommend some other restaurants. Perhaps ones that might be more suitable." Angela laughed out loud. The sound turned heads. Nearby diners glanced over curiously. She looked straight at the manager, tilting her head, her voice rich with sarcasm. "More suitable? What exactly do you mean by suitable? A fast food joint on the corner? A little diner where I won't disturb the luxurious atmosphere here?" The manager flinched slightly but clung to his superior tone. No, of course that's not what I meant. It's just, our goal is always to provide the most comfortable experience for our guests. And I think— Angela cut him off, her voice sharp and commanding. "You think wrong." The tension was palpable. Several diners turned their chairs to watch. Angela took another sip of wine, calm as ever, as if the whole scene was just another form of entertainment. But behind her eyes, a flame of pride and defiance burned brightly. In her mind, a decision was already taking shape. If they want to play this game of prejudice, then I'll play a bigger game. One they'll regret for the rest of their careers. The restaurant buzzed with whispers. Some diners exchanged curious glances, some dismissive, others intrigued. A few thought Angela was just being difficult. But those with sharper eyes noticed something different. Her every word. Her gaze and her calm smile radiated power. Angela swirled her wine glass slowly, lips curved in a knowing smile. They still have no idea who they're dealing with, she thought. The manager, eager to end the scene, gave a subtle nod to the security guard at the door. A burly man in a black suit stepped forward, his voice low and heavy with threat. "Ma'am, if you're unhappy, we're sorry. But perhaps you should leave before disturbing our other guests." Angela's eyes cut to him like a blade. She set her wine down gently and spoke slowly, her words slicing through the silence. "Did you just say, I'm disturbing the other guests?" The entire restaurant froze. Even the clinking of cutlery stopped. The guard faltered for a moment but forced himself to look firm. Angela rose to her full height, her presence towering. She didn't need to shout, didn't need to posture. Her steady voice alone commanded the room. "Fine. If I don't belong here, then starting tomorrow I'll decide who does." Her words fell like prophecy. The manager frowned, confused. But the more perceptive guests caught it immediately. This was no ordinary customer. Angela reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and dialed a familiar number. Within seconds, her assistant answered. "Yes, Mrs. Thomas. I'm here." Angela locked eyes with the manager and hostess as she spoke softly. So softly it sent chills down spines. "Prepare the paperwork. I want to buy this restaurant. As soon as possible." Gasps rippled through the room. Guests gawked. Staff froze. The manager stammered, his arrogance draining into shock and fear. Angela lifted her glass again, raising it as if to toast. A serene smile touched her lips. "Well, isn't this perfect? Tonight, I've just found myself a new investment." The restaurant was thick with tension and disbelief. Whispers spread from table to table, growing louder with each passing second. Some wealthy diners began murmuring among themselves, recognizing the name Angela Thomas from financial magazines and business headlines. The manager's face turned pale as he swallowed hard, struggling to regain his composure. His voice trembled as he spoke. You want to buy this restaurant? I think perhaps this is just a misunderstanding." Angela tilted her head, her eyes sharp yet playful. She sipped her wine slowly, then set the glass down with a deliberate clink, her words striking the room like a hammer. "Misunderstanding? Oh no, you're mistaken. I never joke about business, especially when it involves disrespect." The blonde hostess behind him flushed crimson, her hands trembling as she clutched her notepad. Gone was her earlier arrogance. Now her fear was almost tangible. Diners near the bar stared at Angela differently, no longer dismissive, but curious, even admiring. Angela pulled out her phone again, speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I want a meeting with the current owner first thing tomorrow morning. Offer double the market value. I don't like wasting time." Her assistant's firm voice crackled through the speaker. "Yes, ma'am. I'll arrange it immediately." Angela smiled, her gaze sweeping across the entire dining room. She was no longer just a guest denied a table. She was the woman who controlled the entire atmosphere. The silence that followed felt like submission, Raising her glass with effortless authority, she declared, "How ironic. You refused me a single table. But in just a few hours, I'll decide who gets to sit at every table in this place." The room held its breath. A few diners even clapped softly, unsure whether it was out of admiration or sheer excitement. The manager and his staff stood frozen, unable to utter a single word. Angela leaned back in her chair, her proud smile lingering. This is only the beginning, she thought. Soon they'll learn that arrogance always comes with a price. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the towering glass windows of Angela's office, casting golden reflections across her polished wooden desk. Outside, the city buzzed with traffic, but on the 40th floor, the air was thick with quiet authority. Dressed in a sleek gray suit, her hair neatly tied back, Angela looked every bit the woman in control, sharp, composed, and unstoppable. A steaming cup of black coffee sat beside her laptop. She reviewed last night's paperwork while her mind lingered on the meeting ahead. Her trusted assistant, Daniel, walked in carrying a thick folder. His face showed a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Ma'am, I've spoken with the restaurant's owner. He agreed to meet you this morning. It seems your double market price offer was impossible to refuse." Angela's lips curved into a knowing smile, her eyes gleaming. "Money isn't always the point, Daniel. Sometimes it's about showing people exactly how badly they misjudged you." Daniel nodded and opened the folder. Inside were details about the restaurant, its history, financial records, and whispers that the owner had been struggling to maintain profits. Angela's smirk deepened. Perfect. They thought I was just another nobody at the bar. Little did they know, I was already holding the scalpel. A few hours later, Angela stepped out of her sleek black limousine in front of a grand, old-fashioned building, the office of the restaurant's owner. Heavy wooden doors opened to reveal a European-style chamber, elegant yet slightly worn with age. The owner, a heavy-set white man in his early 50s with thinning silver hair, rose to greet Angela with a reluctant handshake. His eyes flickered with suspicion and unease. Clearly, word of the incident last night had reached him. "Mrs. Thomas," he began, his voice low and guarded. "I hear you're interested in my restaurant." Angela smiled confidently as she took her seat, crossing her legs and folding her hands neatly. "Not just interested," she said. "I intend to make it mine." Silence hung in the room. The man cleared his throat, forcing a chuckle. "This restaurant holds great sentimental value for me. But I admit, the price you've offered is very tempting. Still, I must ask why. Why would a tech CEO want to own a French fine dining establishment?" Angela leaned forward, her voice crisp and deliberate. "Because I want people to remember that the table they denied me yesterday will be the dining room I own tomorrow." The man's eyes flickered with shock. Beside her, Daniel allowed himself a small smile. As though he were watching a chess match Angela had already won. The restaurant owner cleared his throat, trying to steady himself, though his large hands clenched tightly on the desk betrayed him. His eyes scanned Angela's face as if searching for a crack, a sign that this was just a bluff. "Mrs. Thomas," he began, his voice low but trembling, "I admit your offer is tempting. But this restaurant isn't just a business to me. It's my life's work. Do you really believe you can buy all of that with money alone?" Angela leaned back in her chair, eyes gleaming with amusement. She tapped her fingers lightly against the armrest, her words deliberate and sharp. "You're mistaken. I don't buy everything with money. I buy with vision, with the power to turn a place steeped in prejudice into a new symbol. And honestly," she tilted her head slightly, her lips curling into a razor-edged smile, "when your staff humiliated me in front of dozens of guests, you devalued your life's work all by yourself." The room thickened with tension. Daniel watched, pride lighting his eyes. The owner's face flushed red, torn between anger and embarrassment. He stammered, I never authorized my staff to behave that way." Angela laughed, the sound bright yet cutting like glass. "Never authorized? But you tolerated it. And when a business tolerates discrimination, it signs its own death warrant. I'm simply the one arriving at the right moment to write the next chapter." Silence pressed down. Sweat beaded on the man's forehead. At that moment, Daniel slid a folder across the desk. Profit margins in decline, debts unpaid, contracts nearing expiration. proof that the restaurant was far from thriving. Angela crossed her arms, her voice steady and commanding. You have two choices. 1. Cling to your life's work as it collapses and watch it sink. 2. Sign this contract, step away with dignity, and let me transform it into a true symbol. The room was silent, save for the ticking of the clock on the wall. The owner's eyes flickered, caught between pride and fear of losing everything. Angela, calm and unwavering, sat like a lioness, waiting for her prey to walk willingly into the trap. The restaurant owner sat in heavy silence, his eyes darting between the folder of damning numbers and Angela. He was clearly wrestling with his pride, but each figure on the page cut deeper into the facade he was trying so hard to maintain. At last, he exhaled sharply, leaning his elbows onto the desk, his voice gravelly. All right, Mrs. Thomas. I won't deny my finances aren't in the best shape, but if you truly want this restaurant, I won't let it go so easily. I have conditions. Angela arched a brow, her lips curving into a half-smile, as if intrigued. Oh, I do enjoy a good negotiation. What are your conditions? He narrowed his eyes as though trying to test her resolve. I want the restaurant to keep its name. It's tied to my reputation of over 30 years, and I want a seat on the board, at least for the first 5 years. Daniel glanced at Angela, curious how she'd respond. It was a clear attempt to salvage pride, but Angela didn't flinch. She chuckled softly, then leaned forward, her gaze piercing straight through him. You want to keep the name? How quaint. The problem is, that name is now tainted by your staff's behavior and your tolerance of it. I'll turn the place into a new symbol, and its new name will be mine to choose. As for a seat on the board? Absolutely not. I don't share power with those who've already proven themselves unworthy of it. The owner's face flushed with embarrassment. He forced a bitter smile. You're remarkably ruthless, Mrs. Thomas. I suppose that's why you're a billionaire CEO. Angela's laugh was light but sharp, her words ringing with pride. No, sir. I became a billionaire CEO because I never compromised with cowardice or prejudice. The tension crackled like a live wire. The owner drummed his fingers on the desk, his silence betraying hesitation. He was wavering, but clinging desperately to the last shreds of control. Angela remained composed, the very image of a huntress waiting for her prey to corner itself. The room hung heavy with silence, the steady ticking of the wall clock echoing like a countdown to an inevitable decision. The restaurant owner exhaled sharply, his shoulders slumping. He had been cornered, and though his pride fought to the last, reality was closing in. Angela didn't press him. She sat calmly, sipping the coffee Daniel had poured, her eyes never leaving his troubled face. The silence itself weighed more than any argument could. Finally, the man let out a weary sigh. Mrs. Thomas, you've won. I can't hold on to it any longer. If I don't sell to you, I'll lose everything. He reached for the pen but paused, his voice rough with resignation. Just one request. Keep its elegance alive. Don't turn it into something unrecognizable. Angela's gaze softened slightly. She nodded, her voice steady but resolute. Rest assured, I don't destroy value. I erase rot. Your restaurant will become a place where anyone, regardless of skin color, gender, or status, is treated with respect. That is true elegance. His hand trembled as he signed the contract. The scratch of the pen across paper sounded like the final note of an ending. When he set the pen down, the atmosphere shifted. The balance of power had changed. Daniel's smile spread wide, while Angela leaned back, lips curling into a satisfied smile. In that moment, she wasn't just a tech CEO. She was a woman who had turned humiliation into triumph. It's done, she said softly, her tone a confident declaration. From today, I am the new owner of the restaurant. The man lowered his head, eyes filled with regret, yet tinged with relief. Angela rose, picked up the contract, and turned to Daniel. Let's go. We have a restaurant to rebirth. And in that moment, Angela knew. The real battle was only just beginning. That evening, the elegant street glowed once again with golden lights and laughter. The French fine dining restaurant where Angela had been denied still buzzed with guests. But tonight, everything was different. None of the staff knew that just hours earlier. Ownership of the entire establishment had changed hands. Angela stepped out of a sleek limousine, her crimson evening gown hugging her figure, radiant like fire against the night. Daniel followed closely, carrying the briefcase, the freshly signed contract inside, proof of her absolute power. When Angela pushed through the doors, all eyes turned. The blonde hostess, the very same who had refused her the night before, froze in place, her face draining of color. Her lips parted, but no words came. The manager stood stiff, his heartbeat pounding in his chest. Angela smiled calmly, gliding toward the front desk. She placed her clutch gently on the counter, her gaze locking onto the trembling hostess. "Any tables available tonight?" "Oh, that's right, I almost forgot." From now on, I don't have to ask. The air erupted with murmurs. Guests whispered, some recognizing Angela from financial headlines. The manager, sweating, rushed forward. "Mrs. Thomas, I didn't realize." Angela raised her hand to silence him. Her voice rang clear and commanding, carrying across the dining room. "As of this moment, I am the new owner of this restaurant, and my very first act is to sweep away the empty arrogance that has robbed this place of its dignity." Gasps rippled through the room. The blonde hostess trembled, staring down at the counter. Angela fixed her with a steady gaze, not angry, but cold and resolute. "You taught me a valuable lesson, that prejudice can live even within gilded walls. Now it's my turn to teach you. Respect has no color." The room went silent. Guests held their breath, and in that instant, Angela stood tall, not just a billionaire CEO, but the embodiment of justice walking into the room. Angela took a few more steps into the grand hall. The sharp clicks of her heels echoed across the marble floor, each one a statement of authority. All eyes followed her, guests clutching wine glasses, staff frozen in place, unsure what to do. She stopped in the center of the room, turning to face everyone. Her voice carried strong and clear, every word like iron. "The previous owner has signed this place over to me. And starting today, this restaurant will change." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some wealthy diners frowned, while others clapped lightly, curious to see what was coming. Angela raised her hand for silence, then continued. "First change. Every customer who walks through these doors, whether dressed in a suit or in work clothes, whether holding a black card or a regular card, will be treated with the same respect. Arrogance has no place here." The blonde hostess lowered her head, cheeks burning red, eyes brimming with tears. Angela glanced at her but didn't fire her on the spot. Instead, she said, "You, the one who refused me last night, I'll give you one last chance. Either you learn to treat all customers fairly, or you can leave this place right now." The room held its breath. The young woman trembled, then whispered, I'm sorry, I'll change." Angela nodded slightly, then turned to the manager, the man who had sneered at her. "And you, if you want to keep your position, you'll prove that you can lead with fairness, not prejudice." "I'll be watching." The atmosphere shifted. A few guests began clapping louder, and soon the entire dining room erupted in applause. They had just witnessed a stunning reversal. The woman once denied a table was now rewriting the rules. Angela lifted her chin, a proud smile spreading across her face. This is no longer just a restaurant. From now on, it will be a symbol of respect and equality. The applause had barely faded when Angela stepped onto a small platform where a decorative piano stood, giving her a commanding view of the entire restaurant. The crystal chandelier light bathed her face, illuminating the aura of a leader who knew she held absolute control. She raised her hand, and the room fell silent once more. Her voice rang clear as she began announcing her reforms. "Second change, we will expand the menu. This restaurant will not only serve the elite who've always felt at home here, but also families who wish to experience elegance without being judged. I will bring in the best chefs to create dishes that are both refined and accessible." Gasps spread among the guests. Some couldn't believe such an exclusive establishment could change so radically. But Angela's gaze never wavered. "Third change," she continued, "this restaurant will launch a fund to support culinary students. Every month, we'll select young talents from modest backgrounds and give them the chance to train and grow here. A place that once shut its doors to many will now open them." The murmurs grew louder, admiration from some, astonishment from others. Angela paused, then allowed a sly, almost mocking smile. And the final change for tonight. Any staff member who still harbors prejudice of any kind, stand up and walk out. I don't need you. I won't tolerate you. The room went utterly still. Eyes turned toward the staff. A few bowed their heads, knowing they had treated guests unfairly before. The manager's fists clenched, sweat trickling down his temple. Yet no one dared to rise. Angela's proud smile deepened. She knew she had made them all bow without lifting a finger. Good, then prove it with your actions. From this day forward, this place will not only serve food, it will serve respect. And that respect begins with how you treat every single guest. Her words hung in the air like an oath. The room was silent for a heartbeat. Then, from a table near the window, a lone clap rang out. Moments later, the entire dining room erupted into thunderous applause. Angela stood tall, radiant like a queen in her newly claimed kingdom. The applause still echoed as Angela stepped down from the platform. She didn't leave immediately. Instead, she walked to the largest table in the room, where several wealthy guests sat, watching her with a mix of curiosity and unease. Angela smiled, pulled out a chair and sat down. A simple gesture that silenced the room. She raised her hand to the bartender. Bring me the most expensive bottle of wine in this restaurant, and bring enough glasses for everyone here. The room held its breath. The bottle she requested was rare and legendary, usually opened only on grand occasions, its price equal to a month's salary for many. The bartender hesitated, then nodded, carefully retrieving the bottle with trembling hands. When every crystal glass shimmered with deep red wine, Angela rose to her feet, lifting hers high. Her eyes gleamed with pride. Last night I was denied a single table in this place. Tonight I stand here as its new owner, and I want us to raise our glasses, not to celebrate my victory, but to mark a new beginning. A place where every person, regardless of background, is treated with respect. In that moment, no whispers, no sneers, only eyes fixed on Angela, the woman who had turned humiliation into triumph. The clinking of glasses filled the air, followed by thunderous applause. Some wealthy diners even rose from their seats, bowing their heads slightly, as if paying respect to a queen who had claimed her throne. Angela took a sip, letting the bold wine roll across her tongue. A sly smile curved her lips as she thought, "This game has only just begun, and I'm the one writing the rules." The chandelier's glow cascaded over her, illuminating Angela as she stood in the center of admiration, a true queen in her newly conquered kingdom. The next morning, the city awoke to a headline that shook the business world. On the front page of the largest financial paper, bold letters declared, "Billionaire CEO buys luxury restaurant after being denied a table." A photo of Angela in her blazing red gown, raising a glass under the chandelier lights, spread like wildfire. Major news channels, finance blogs, and every corner of social media lit up with the story. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook buzzed with hashtags, and Angela Thomas, respect, has no color. Newer dining, supporters hailed Angela as a symbol of pride and justice. One user wrote, "Finally, someone stood up to prejudice in the very places that flaunt luxury." Others dubbed her a modern queen, a woman who turned humiliation into resounding victory. Of course, critics chimed in too. A few conservative voices sneered, "She's just flaunting her money. There's nothing admirable about buying your way to power." But those remarks only added fuel to the fire, making the story even more sensational. In her office, Angela sipped coffee calmly, eyes scanning the cascade of articles on a giant screen. Daniel entered, iPad in hand, unable to hide his excitement. "Do you see this? In less than 12 hours, your story is everywhere. Even our company stock ticked upward. They're calling you the woman who rewrites the rules." Angela set down her cup, her lips curving into a serene smile. "The rules were rotten to begin with. I'm simply rewriting them, in a fairer way." Outside, the city buzzed in chaos. But for Angela, this was only the beginning. Just hours later, outside Angela's corporate headquarters, dozens of reporters gathered. Cameras flashed, microphones shot forward, and a barrage of questions rained down. "Mrs. Thomas, why buy a restaurant over just one table?" Don't you think that was an overreaction? Was this impulsive or part of a bigger strategy? Angela stepped out of the elevator, walking with serene poise. Her crisp white suit gleamed in the midday sun, making her look every bit the symbol of power. Security and assistants moved to escort her, but Angela raised her hand to stop them. She didn't shy away. Instead, she stepped onto a small platform at the entrance, sunlight casting a confident glow on her face. She looked straight into the cameras, her voice ringing out firm and clear. Last night, I didn't just buy a restaurant. I bought out a rotten mindset, a mindset of prejudice and arrogance. They thought denying a guest was nothing. But to me, it was a symptom of something deeper, a social disease built on discrimination. And I will not accept that. The crowd fell silent for a beat before the frantic snapping of cameras and scribbling of pens filled the air. Angela went on. I didn't buy power. I already have power. What I bought was an opportunity to prove that every space, even the most exclusive, can become a symbol of fairness and respect. That restaurant will no longer be about flaunting status. It will be about every person feeling valued. Her words struck like fire, igniting the crowd. Some reporters nodded, others clapped. Several news networks broadcast live, turning her speech into the headline of the day. Behind her, Daniel smiled faintly. He knew this wasn't just a business move. Angela had just transformed a personal insult into a movement, an undeniable message of change. Just hours after Angela's speech aired, social media exploded. Millions of shares, comments, and reaction videos flooded every platform. The hashtag, #YourRespect#has-no-color, shot to the #1 trending spot worldwide. A famous pop star tweeted, Angela Thomas just did what so many of us dream of, turning contempt into power. I stand with her. The post racked up hundreds of thousands of likes and shares. A young politician spoke at a press conference. Mrs. Thomas's story proves that we need more leaders willing to confront and dismantle prejudice. Even major CEOs from the tech industry chimed in. One posted on LinkedIn, this wasn't just a deal, it was a declaration. Angela Thomas has set a new standard for leadership. Of course, backlash followed. A conservative newspaper ran the headline, CEO turns personal emotion into multi-million deal, vision or impulse. In the comments, critics sneered, throwing money around isn't fairness, it's just arrogance in disguise. But the divide only fueled the fire, spreading the story even further. In her office, Daniel scrolled through headlines on his iPad, his voice buzzing with excitement. Mrs. Thomas, did you see? International media's covering this now. They're calling you the woman who bought respect. Angela chuckled, her smile tinged with irony and pride. Truth is, I never needed to buy respect. All I did was buy the stage, so everyone could finally see that respect is the most important dish we should be serving. Daniel looked at her with admiration. Knowing full well Angela hadn't just won a personal battle, she had sparked a movement that would be remembered for years to come. A week later, the French fine dining restaurant unveiled a brand new identity. The grand sign outside now read, Maison d'Égalité, the House of Equality. Dozens of reporters, photographers, and VIP guests crowded the entrance. Camera flashes lit up the night like a Hollywood premiere. Angela arrived in a sapphire blue evening gown, radiant and commanding. Daniel walked at her side, juggling press and guest coordination. As she stepped onto the red carpet leading into the restaurant, cheers erupted, cameras broadcasting every second live. Inside, the setting was elegant, yet inviting. On each table, alongside candles and flowers, lay a small card with the words, "Respect has no color." It wasn't just a phrase, it was now the restaurant's official creed. When guests settled in, Angela stepped onto a small stage in the center, the spotlight bathing her in brilliance. The murmurs hushed. She smiled, her voice carrying firm and powerful. A week ago, I was denied a single table in this very place. Tonight, I stand before you as its new owner. I didn't buy this restaurant to feed my ego. I bought it to prove that anyone who walks in these doors deserves respect. Thunderous applause shook the room. Cameras caught tearful faces, nodding heads, people deeply moved. Angela went on. Maison d'Égalité will be more than a restaurant. It will be a symbol, a place where elegance isn't measured by the price of a dress or the color of a credit card, but by how we treat one another. The applause grew louder. Chants of, "Angela! Angela!" filled the air. And in that moment, Angela knew she hadn't just bought a building. She had captured the hearts of people longing to see a fairer world. Just days after the grand opening, with applause still echoing in memory, Angela faced a brewing storm. Competitors who had long ruled the fine dining scene began to whisper. One high-profile food magazine ran a mocking headline, "Maison d'Égalité, luxury or cheap PR stunt." The article sneered, "Opening doors to everyone may turn this place into just another chain restaurant." In private elite clubs, cutting remarks circulated. She thinks she can rewrite tradition? A French fine dining restaurant welcoming workers and broke students? Ridiculous. Some rivals even spread rumors that Angela had no real experience in hospitality, predicting her venture would collapse within months. Daniel laid the paper on her desk, his voice heavy with concern. "See this? They're attacking you deliberately. Not just the press, but rival restaurants too. They're scared you'll shake their foundation." Angela leaned back in her chair, eyes calm, yet sharp. She sipped her tea and smirked. "Of course they're scared. People only attack what they can't control. If I didn't make them tremble, then I would have already failed." She stood, walking to the tall glass window, gazing down at the city glittering with lights. Her voice firm, her eyes resolute. "Daniel, we won't answer with excuses. We'll answer with results. Start the menu overhaul and organize our first community event this week. I want them to see that elegance isn't lost, it's simply being redefined." Daniel smiled, nodding. "Understood, ma'am. If this is war, we'll show them you play on a whole different level." Angela turned back, a razor-sharp smile curving her lips. She knew the real test had only just begun, and this battle would be fought not just in food, but in the conscience of society itself. That weekend, Maison d'Égalité became the city's focal point as Angela hosted her first community event, Dinner for All. Not only the wealthy elite, but workers, students, and everyday people were invited to dine. Outside, long lines formed, college girls in simple t-shirts, a taxi driver still in uniform. Media swarmed the entrance, cameras flashing. Reporters narrated with excitement. For the first time, a luxury restaurant has opened its doors to all walks of life, while still serving a full French fine dining menu. Inside, candlelight flickered across pristine white tablecloths. Instead of rows of suits and gowns, the room was a blend, faded shirts beside cocktail dresses, sneakers next to polished leather shoes. And no one looked at anyone with judgment. Angela entered in a simple yet elegant dress. She didn't sit at a VIP table but moved from guest to guest, shaking hands, asking questions like a true hostess. A group of students stood in shock, stammering, "Ma'am, we can't believe we're here. This is our first time tasting real foie gras." Angela smiled, placing a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder. "You deserve to experience refinement just like anyone else. Remember, luxury isn't in your wallet, it's in the way we treat each other." At a corner table, a reporter quietly filmed the moment and streamed it live. The clip spread across social media instantly, racking up millions of views within hours. Elsewhere, an older construction worker sat beside a young businessman. At first they seemed awkward, but after a few glasses of wine, laughter and stories filled the air. The image became the perfect symbol of Angela's vision, tearing down invisible walls between classes. Daniel leaned close, whispering excitedly, "Do you see this? The press is calling it a historic dinner. They're saying you haven't just changed a restaurant, you've changed the very meaning of luxury." Angela smiled, her eyes glimmering with pride. Raising her glass, she whispered to herself, "This is only the beginning." While Angela basked in the success of Dinner for All across the city, a group of rivals gathered in the private room of an elite club. Cigar smoke hung in the air, wine glasses swirled, but the mood was heavy, like a battle being plotted. A silver-haired man, owner of a long-established French restaurant chain, slammed his fist on the table. "She's destroying the entire concept of luxury. If people start believing luxury means anyone can walk in, then our restaurants lose their exclusivity. A woman who owned an Italian fine dining chain smirked bitterly, swirling her glass. And it's not just that. She's dominating the media. Every headline, every social feed has her name. My VIP clients canceled reservations to attend her little event. Another voice cut in, cold and sharp. We need to make her fail. If not, we'll be the next to drown in this so-called equality. Plans began to form. They talked about spreading false rumors, that Angela's food was just a PR gimmick, that quality would collapse once she opened the doors to the masses. Some even suggested hiring fake customers to stage incidents and trigger bad press against Maison d'Égalité. Meanwhile, back at the office, Daniel handed Angela a confidential report. His brow furrowed with concern. Mrs. Thomas, there's something you need to know. I've received intel. Our rivals are preparing a smear campaign to damage our reputation. Angela set her notebook down, her gaze calm but piercing, as though she had anticipated this all along. She let out a cold, sharp smile. Good. If they want to play dirty, I'll show them that playing clean is enough to win. Let them set the stage. I'll turn it into my spotlight. Daniel looked at her, torn between worry and admiration. He knew Angela wasn't just a businesswoman. She was a warrior, forged in battles where cheap tricks were the norm. And this time, too, she wouldn't back down. That afternoon, a wave of shocking posts flooded social media and food blogs. Sensational headlines screamed, Maison d'Égalité serving low-quality food to common guests. Diners report food poisoning after dinner at Angela Thomas's restaurant. The story spread like wildfire. A blurry video circulated, showing a man lying on the floor clutching his stomach, groaning weakly. I only had the soup there. And now look at me. Almost instantly, TV channels picked it up. Commentators chimed in. Perhaps opening the doors too wide has compromised quality. Daniel rushed into Angela's office, his face tense. Mrs. Thomas, they've begun. Fake videos, false rumors, it's all aimed directly at you. Angela sat calmly at her desk, her eyes sharp as steel. She glanced at the large screen showing the headlines, then smirked. I told you, Daniel. They'd write the script. I'll turn it into my stage. She stood, walking to the window overlooking the bustling city. Her voice was steady, powerful. Invite every media outlet to the restaurant tonight. I want a public demonstration. My chefs will cook live, ingredients inspected on camera. Nothing to hide. Daniel blinked, stunned. You mean, turn their scandal into a performance? Angela turned back, her smile proud and fierce. Exactly. If they want to fabricate a scandal, I'll make it a show, one where the whole world sees the truth. And the truth never bows to lies. Daniel nodded, his eyes lighting up. He knew tonight wouldn't just be dinner. It would be a battle Angela fully intended to win, right on the stage her enemies had built. That evening, Maison d'Égalité was surrounded by a sea of people. Dozens of reporters, TV cameras, food critics, and curious onlookers crowded the entrance. Flashes popped relentlessly, and voices rang out. Is Angela Thomas hiding the truth? Is this luxury restaurant really as safe as she claims? When the limousine pulled up, Angela stepped out in a sharp black suit, her hair neatly tied, heels striking with authority. The crowd buzzed instantly. Daniel walked beside her, clutching files and a microphone, ready for what looked like a press conference. Angela didn't dodge. She smiled, stepping directly into the crowd of reporters, her voice strong. Tonight, you're not just here to dine. You're here to witness the truth. Inside, the restaurant had been transformed. A large open kitchen, fitted with cameras and big screens, allowed everyone to watch every detail. Chefs in pristine white coats stood ready. Ingredients, meat, fish, produce, were sealed and certified on the spot. Angela took the stage, the spotlight illuminating her. She held up a tomato from the basket of ingredients and raised it high for the cameras. This is the truth. No edits, no cover-ups. Every ingredient will be inspected right here, and every dish will be served to you tonight. The room buzzed as cameras clicked and reporters scribbled. Some nodded, impressed by Angela's unwavering composure. Then the performance began. Knives sliced, pans sizzled, aromas filled the air. French classics, foie gras, beef bourguignon, apple tart, came to life before their eyes. Angela walked among the tables, inviting critics and journalists to taste. A notoriously harsh food critic carefully lifted a bite of foie gras to his lips. He chewed slowly, then looked up, eyes alight. Perfect. Absolutely flawless. The room erupted in applause. Cameras zoomed in on Angela, capturing her triumphant smile. That is the truth, she declared. And the truth never needs to hide. The applause thundered, but Angela suddenly raised her hand. The room hushed instantly, only the steady hum of cameras remained. She walked slowly back to the stage, heels striking with purpose. Her eyes sharp as blades. Holding the microphone, her voice rang calm but commanding. Tonight is not only about proving the quality of this restaurant. It's about revealing something far more important, the truth about those who orchestrated this smear campaign. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Daniel stepped forward, handing her a tablet. Angela tapped it, and the giant screen behind her lit up. Playing hidden footage, it showed a group of rival restaurateurs in a luxury bar, discussing how to hire fake customers to stage food poisoning incidents against Maison d'Égalité. Their voices echoed through the hall. Undeniable, one fake video is all it takes. The media will swallow it like bait. The audience erupted. Reporters scrambled, filming, taking notes, live streaming the revelation. The room buzzed with outrage and shock. Angela stood tall, her eyes blazing under the spotlight. This is the truth. And once truth is revealed, lies turn to ashes. They wanted to see me fall. But they forgot one thing. I never bow to lies. I turn lies into the leverage that takes me higher. A massive wave of applause shook the hall, lasting long and loud. Cameras zoomed in on Angela's proud face, while breaking news alerts lit up across screens. Angela Thomas exposes sabotage conspiracy. Daniel, standing behind her, eyes shining with pride, whispered softly to himself, "You didn't just win. You brought down an entire system." Angela smiled, lifting her glass high. "I didn't bring them down. Their greed and cowardice did. I simply showed the world the truth." The very next morning, national news broadcasts opened with the shocking footage Angela had revealed. Headlines scrolled across the screen. Angela Thomas exposes sabotage plot. Fine dining world in turmoil. Major newspapers splashed bold covers. Dirty secrets of fine dining elites exposed. Angela Thomas, from victim to leader of a fairness revolution. On social media, clips from last night spread like wildfire. Angela's image under the spotlight, her quote echoing everywhere. The truth never bows to lies. Meanwhile, the rivals caught in that secret meeting scrambled in panic. Some tried to deny it, claiming the video was fabricated. But within hours, economic investigators stepped in, confirming the footage's authenticity. An official declared publicly, "We consider this an act of fraud and corporate sabotage. All individuals involved will face full investigation and consequences." The entire fine dining industry shook. Doubters now rallied behind Angela, hailing her as the woman who pulled back the velvet curtain, exposing a world that seemed perfect, yet was riddled with deceit. In her office, Daniel scrolled through the flood of headlines, his face glowing like a child unwrapping gifts. "Do you see this, Mrs. Thomas? The whole country, international outlets too, they're calling you a hero. Not just in business, but in the fight against injustice." Angela stood at the window, gazing out over the bustling city. This time, she didn't wear her usual proud smile. Her face was thoughtful, almost solemn. "I didn't do this to be a hero. I did it because I've seen too many people silenced, trampled on. If a luxury restaurant can change, then maybe, just maybe, society can too." Daniel stayed quiet for a moment, then nodded firmly. He knew Angela hadn't just won a deal, she had sparked a movement. One whose power stretched far beyond the walls of Maison d'Égalité. That afternoon, Angela received an unexpected message. Richard Beaumont, owner of the city's oldest French fine dining chain and one of her fiercest rivals, wanted to meet her in person. The leaked video had dragged his decades-long reputation through the mud, leaving him reeling. Daniel frowned as he handed her the invitation. "Mrs. Thomas, I don't trust this. He's not here to make peace. This could be a trap." Angela smirked, her eyes gleaming with certainty. "Daniel, when a man is drowning, what does he do? He clutches at any rope he can find. And right now, I'm that rope. But remember, I'm not the kind of rope anyone can pull at will. That evening, Angela entered a private dining room at a luxury hotel. Richard was already seated, his face weary, eyes clouded with bitterness and defeat. A glass of wine sat before him, barely touched. "Angela," Richard rasped, "you've won. But you've destroyed me. Everything I've built my entire life." Angela sat gracefully, arms folded, gaze as sharp as steel. "I didn't destroy you, Richard. You did that yourself when you chose lies over truth. All I did was turn on the light so the world could see who you really are." Richard let out a bitter laugh, his aged face etched with lines. "You think you're a hero? You think you can change the entire system?" Angela tilted her head, smiling calmly yet proudly. "I don't need to think. I'm already doing it, and you're watching it unfold. The system you cling to, the so-called luxury built on exclusion, is crumbling piece by piece. If you're wise, you'll rise and adapt with me. If not, history will bury you." Silence hung heavy. Richard's hands trembled as they gripped the glass tightly. His eyes flickered with a flash of anger, then dimmed, replaced with resignation. He sighed, staring at Angela as though facing an unstoppable force. You're truly dangerous," Richard muttered. Angela lifted her glass, tapping it lightly against the table, her eyes unwavering. "No, Richard, I'm not dangerous. The truth is, I'm just the one holding it up to the light." News of Angela and Maison d'Égalité had spread far beyond one city. After the sabotage scandal collapsed and rivals faced investigation, national and even international media ran features on the billionaire CEO who redefined luxury. Riding this momentum, Angela convened a high-level strategy meeting. In the sleek, glass-walled boardroom, light reflected off the long wooden table as her team sat in tense anticipation. Angela rose, tapping the screen to display a map of the United States. Red dots appeared over New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami. Maison d'Égalité will not just be a restaurant, it will be a movement. We will open branches in 4 major cities within the next year. The room buzzed. A young manager cautiously raised a concern. "But ma'am, expanding so quickly? The pressure will be immense. Can we maintain both philosophy and quality?" Angela smiled with quiet determination. "We're not expanding to get richer. We're expanding to spread values. Each new restaurant will be a lighthouse, a reminder that respect has no color, no class." Daniel stepped in, voice full of energy. "Mrs. Thomas, I've already spoken to renowned chefs and architects. They're eager to join because they believe in your mission." Angela nodded, her eyes glimmering. "Then let's begin. If one seed has sprouted here, let's turn it into a forest across the nation." Outside, the press had already given Maison d'Égalité a new name, the Fair Dining Movement. And Angela knew this was no longer just business. It was the beginning of a social revolution waiting to be written. 3 months later, New York shone brighter than ever as the new Maison d'Égalité branch opened its doors. In the heart of Manhattan, a sleek glass building had been transformed into a refined yet welcoming space. Glowing with the words, Maison d'Égalité, respect has no color. Outside, crowds of reporters, guests, and everyday New Yorkers packed the street. The scene looked more like a movie premiere than a restaurant opening. Signs waved in the air. "We stand with Angela, dining for everyone." Angela stepped onto the red carpet in a pristine white coat, her eyes alight. Daniel walked beside her, pride written all over his smile. Cheers erupted, cameras flashed, and the night pulsed with energy. As she cut the ribbon, Angela lifted her head high, her voice ringing clear through the microphone. "New York, the city of dreams and opportunity. Today, we are not just opening a restaurant. We are opening a door to respect and equality. This is not a place to divide the rich from the poor. This is where everyone sits at the same table to share in the true meaning of elegance." Applause thundered, shaking the street. TV networks streamed live, and the hashtag #FairDining movement surged to the top of global trends. Inside, the first guests of the night weren't just celebrities and elites, but also everyday workers, a school teacher, a taxi driver, a few college seniors. They sat side by side with top business leaders and politicians. A reporter whispered into the camera, "This moment may go down in culinary history. We are witnessing the birth of a new definition: luxury, equality." Angela sat at the center, a glass of wine in hand, watching a room filled with laughter and conversations that knew no social barriers. And deep within, a voice echoed, from being denied a single table to sparking a nationwide movement. This is the power of saying no to injustice. The dazzling New York launch had barely ended when in another corner of the city, a secret meeting convened in a luxury hotel suite. Familiar faces of the fine dining elite, owners who had lost clients to the Maison d'Égalité movement, sat around a table, their eyes heavy with calculation. A middle-aged man, head of a famous steakhouse chain, growled through clenched teeth, "She's destroying our market. If this movement spreads any further, every privilege we've built over decades will vanish." A woman in a black gown swirled her wineglass, her smile cold. "Angela Thomas isn't just a CEO, she's a pioneer. And pioneers are always the easiest targets. If we don't unite, each of us will fall one by one." They began drafting a plan, forming a secret alliance, funding smear campaigns, pressuring government officials with food safety regulations to shackle Angela's new chain. Some even proposed hiring lawyers to sue her for market disruption and unfair competition. Meanwhile, in her New York office, Daniel entered with a thick folder, his face grave. "Mrs. Thomas, I've got intel. A shadow alliance is forming. This time they're not hiding. They're preparing for open war." Angela set down her coffee cup, her gaze sharp as steel sparks. "A war? Good. If they're uniting, it means they're afraid. And if they're afraid, it means we're on the right path." She stood, eyes fixed on the map of the U.S. on the big screen, where new red dots were spreading. A proud smile curved her lips. "Daniel, let them form their alliance. As for us, we'll make this movement not just national, but global." Outside, a new storm was gathering. But Angela knew, the more walls her enemies built, the louder their crash would echo when they fell. The battle was no longer in the shadows. A public hearing convened at New York City Hall with officials, media, and culinary representatives present. The Shadow Alliance had stepped into the light, cloaking themselves under the banner of protecting fair competition to challenge Angela. The grand chamber was packed. TV cameras broadcast live. Dozens of reporters crowded in, notebooks at the ready. On one side of the long table sat the Alliance, their faces stern, each flanked by lawyers. On the other side, Angela entered with Daniel and her legal team. Dressed in a pristine white suit, her face calm, her eyes ablaze. The chairperson began. "Today, we will hear accusations that the Maison d'Égalité chain engages in unfair competition, causing harm to the fine dining industry." A rival restaurateur rose, his tone sharp. "Angela Thomas has undercut the market. She has cheapened luxury by opening doors to all classes. That not only destroys tradition, but inflicts heavy losses on other businesses." Murmurs filled the hall. Some nodded in agreement. Others frowned. Cameras turned to Angela. She rose, walking to the podium. Her voice carried strong and precise, every word a blade. "Unfair competition? I haven't devalued luxury. I've elevated it. I haven't cheapened it. I've made it fair. And if fine dining suffers simply because we treat people with equality, then the problem isn't me. It's with those who insist on building castles on foundations of prejudice." The hall erupted in applause. Reporters scribbled furiously. Faces of the Alliance flushed red with frustration. Angela continued, her tone dropping with gravitas, heavy with authority. "They accuse me of undercutting. The truth is, they fear losing their privilege. They're not defending fine dining. They're defending discrimination. And today I ask, should the future of American dining be built on exclusivity or on fairness?" Cheers and clapping shook the chamber. Cameras captured Angela standing tall, a warrior at the podium. The alliance had finally revealed itself, but Angela had turned the hearing into her stage, exposing their motives to the world. After the New York hearing, it seemed Angela had gained the upper hand. But the alliance wasn't done. Within days, they struck back with a ruthless move, lobbying in Washington for a new regulation called a luxury license. a special permit that only restaurants meeting exorbitant and exclusive standards could hold. News headlines blazed. New bill threatens Maison d'égalité modèle. Fair dining movement at risk of being crushed by legal barriers. Daniel rushed into Angela's office with the breaking story in hand. They're trying to choke us with legislation. If this passes, every new branch we open will be suspended. Mrs. Thomas. This is the hardest blow yet. Angela sat quietly by the window, the afternoon sun casting a glow on her resolute face. Setting her teacup down, a faint smile curved her lips. Exactly as I predicted. When they can't win in public opinion, they'll try to rewrite the rules. But Daniel? She turned, her eyes ablaze. I've never agreed to play by anyone else's rules. She walked to the conference table, unfurling a world map. Red dots spread not only across America, but now London, Paris, Tokyo. Angela circled them boldly with her pen. It's time to take this movement global. If they try to lock me out of America, I'll open 10 more doors abroad. Once the movement is international, no outdated law can hold it back. Daniel's eyes widened, a mix of worry and exhilaration. You mean turning Maison d'égalité into a global brand, a movement no nation can ignore? Angela nodded, her voice ringing like a vow. Exactly. If they want to turn this game into a war, then I'll turn this war into a revolution. And revolutions know no borders. Outside, the crimson sunset blazed across the sky, an omen of the greater battle Angela was about to take to the world. Angela wasted no time. Just 2 weeks later, she boarded her private jet for her first international tour. Destination: London, a city steeped in tradition, home to some of Europe's most elite and exclusive dining. When she stepped onto the red carpet at Heathrow Airport, dozens of international reporters awaited. Cameras flashed wildly, microphones thrust toward her. Mrs. Thomas, how will you bring the Maison d'égalité movement to Europe? Do you think Europe, with its deep-rooted traditions, will accept your vision of fairness? Angela smiled, her reply firm and resonant. Respect has no color, and it has no borders either. That evening, at a grand hall in central London, the European launch event for Maison d'égalité unfolded. Guests included not only executives and artists, but also immigrant workers and international students, people rarely seen inside such refined spaces. When the curtain dropped, revealing the Maison d'égalité logo beneath the Union Jack, the hall erupted in applause. British media instantly branded it a slap in the face to fine dining elitism. On social media, photos of Angela under the spotlight with the words "luxury score equality" spread like wildfire, shared millions of times in hours. Young voices from Paris, Berlin, Rome rose in unison. Bring this movement to our city too. Daniel turned to Angela, his voice trembling with emotion. Mrs. Thomas, do you see? They're embracing you not just as a business leader, but as a global leader. Angela lifted her chin, her eyes blazing in the lights of the hall. This isn't about me anymore. This is the voice of millions who've been overlooked, and I'll carry that voice to every place where prejudice still stands. While Angela was setting Europe ablaze with her message back in the U.S., the old alliance was in full panic. A crisis meeting was held in a discreet Washington, D.C. building. No wine glasses or cigars this time. The atmosphere was warlike. A silver-haired man shouted, his voice trembling with rage. She didn't just survive the hearing, she used it to catapult herself global. If we don't stop her now, in a few years, Angela Thomas will be remembered like a Mandela of fine dining. A female restaurateur slammed her palm on the table. We've tried media smears, legal tricks, even personal attacks, and she keeps flipping the script. There's only one move left: strike her finances directly. Their plan was ruthless: leverage political and corporate connections to pressure banks and investors into pulling funding from Angela's projects. Starve Maison d'égalité of money, and the movement would collapse under its own weight. Meanwhile, in London, Daniel rushed into Angela's suite with a classified report. His face was tight with concern. Mrs. Thomas, they're going all in. They're cutting off our financial lifelines. If they succeed, our global expansion stalls. The entire movement could be crippled. Angela stood silent for a long moment, gazing out the window at London's glittering skyline. Then she spoke, her voice low but unshakably firm. "Daniel, I've known from the start, every revolution comes with a price. If they want to use money to cage me, then I'll prove this movement doesn't need money. It needs people, and people cannot be bought." She turned back, a sharp smile on her lips. "We won't wait for their strike. I want a campaign that calls on the community, the millions who've stood with us from the beginning. If they all rise together, even banks and tycoons will have to bow." Daniel's eyes widened, his voice almost caught in his throat. "You mean turning this into a global people-funded movement?" Angela nodded, her tone thunderous. "Exactly. They want to suffocate me with money, but I'll make the world feed this revolution with belief. And belief is stronger than any dollar." The global campaign began. Angela broadcast a simple yet powerful message on international television. They may control the banks. They may control the media, but they cannot control your hearts. If you believe respect has no borders, then join me in fueling this movement. Within 24 hours, the Sacre y Fair Dining movement drew millions of small contributions from around the world. A teacher in Brazil sent $5, a taxi driver in Egypt sent $2, a group of students in Japan pooled $50. The press called it a wave of belief, an unprecedented phenomenon in the history of dining. Meanwhile, the U.S. alliance panicked. They thought cutting off funding would strangle Angela. Instead, their move turned her into a symbol. The more walls they built, the stronger the public's faith became. The decisive day arrived. Angela stood on stage at a global conference in Geneva, Switzerland, facing journalists, leaders, and thousands watching online. Head held high, her eyes ablaze, she declared, "They call me a threat. But I am just a woman who was once denied a seat at a restaurant. That injustice put me here today. And I promise, as long as there is one person disrespected because of color or class, Maison d'Égalité will exist, and it will grow." Thunderous applause shook the hall. Cameras captured hundreds rising to their feet, holding signs that read, "Luxury should be quality." Back in the U.S., the alliance finally collapsed. Some members were prosecuted for fraud. Others slunk away in silence. Headlines read, "Facing Angela Thomas, lies shot themselves in the foot." Daniel watched Angela on stage, his eyes misting. He whispered, "You've done what no one thought possible, turning a denied table into a table for the whole world." Angela smiled, raising her hand to the roaring crowd. In that moment, she knew the movement no longer belonged to her. It belonged to everyone who believed that respect is humanity's shared luxury.